guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another plant video. We are going to be troubleshooting some Hoya today. I know a lot of you guys have some trouble with your Hoya. Sometimes it can be a pain in the butt because they're drying out, they look yellow, you don't know what's happening. So today I'm going to be showing you guys what I do personally when those things happen. I'm going to be showing you guys the differences with a sun-stressed yellow Hoya versus a rotting yellow Hoya and rotting, desiccated, dry leaves versus actual dry leaves that just need some water. So let's first go ahead and talk about normal versus abnormal yellow leaves. I know that you've probably seen pictures going around of sort of like what yellow leaves may mean. I'll go ahead and put it here if I can find it. It also seems to be the same thing with Hoya. So this is my Hoya mirabilis. I had moved it into Leca, and this yellow leaf has recently fallen off of it. You can tell that it's like very solid in color. There's nothing weird going on with it. It has like regular, just solid yellow color, and it fell off from the bottom and the base of the plant. This plant is giving off a ton of new growth and nothing seems wrong with it other than that one yellow leaf. So I personally would look at this and think this plant is totally fine. The yellow leaf is just something that it decided to drop so that way you can put more energy into giving up new leaves. The second sort of yellow leaf or yellowing leaf that I wanted to talk about is a sun-stressed yellow leaf. Sometimes we have some plants like the Polynura that really just doesn't like the light too much. They really are just very sort of shade plants. They don't like being super close to the grow light. They don't like being super close to the sun. Personally, it's not something that I think it's super insane to be worried about. It's not something that can like just totally kill your plant. Maybe in long term it is not the best for your plant and you should try to find a different environment for it, but immediately it's not something that you need to like think, oh, it must be something crazy, I need to do all this treatment, because sometimes treatment can actually hurt your plant more than it helps. But let's go ahead and get to a desiccating yellow leaf. So as you guys know, I have been struggling a bit with my lacunosa snowcaps. I had sort of, I guess, diagnosed it with dehydration. As you guys can see, it has a lot of like crispy leaves. It just had a lot of crisp going on. It had a lot of wrinkliness. At first I thought that it could potentially be root rot just because it did have a few yellow leaves going on, but either way I knew that there was something wrong with the roots. So I decided to essentially reroot it in soil. This isn't the easiest nor is it the wisest thing to do with your plants, but sometimes if you're A, lazy, or B, just don't have enough time. I didn't have enough time, and I also don't feel like lacunosa like to be disturbed because their roots are so delicate. So I felt like this was a good solution to it, just sort of watering and keeping an eye on it and keeping some water at the bottom. It seemed to help a lot, so I think that would be a solution. So dry and crispy equals not enough water. The yellow leaves on it were worrisome, but it wasn't worrisome enough to where I thought, yes, that's definitely a root rot issue, because either way, dehydration and root rot still have something to do with the roots. I don't know if that's super clear, but if your plant is dehydrated, your roots are pretty much starting to desiccate, and when they desiccate completely, they can also just rot off and die, and then in result just kill your plant. So yeah, that is my Hoya lacunosa snowcaps, and that is personally how I treat dehydrated plants. I also do the method in which I kind of just try to chop and prop in coco husk, because I think it's a good medium to hold some moisture so that your plant can reroot without having to completely do it over again, I guess you can say. But yeah, that is pretty much how I treat my dehydrated plants. I hope that made sense. It can get a little bit confusing, but in general, I like to reroot reroot and just sort of plump up those roots and give it just a healthier root system in general. So this right here is my Hoya fitchii. I am currently troubleshooting this guy just because I have no idea what's happening with it. I don't know if it's a fungal issue, But again, I can just kind of assume that it is something going on with its roots just because I feel like I didn't pay too much attention to this. I do feel like I wasn't watering as much as I should have been whenever I was really busy those few weeks. So I don't think that it's something that is just simple that I can like put a spray on and leave alone. I do feel like if I continue to let this deteriorate, it probably is not going to work in my favor. So I am probably just going to end up rerooting this entirely. It is very dehydrated. It's extremely dehydrated. You can tell how wrinkly and flimsy. The backs of the leaves also have weird spots going on. So that is abnormal. I'm not sure what's happening. So I am essentially going to be chopping this up. I do feel like it might even be too late to chop up, but I always want to try to see if maybe I can save it, because again, if I do nothing, it's probably just gonna end up dying anyway. So I am actually going to be chopping this up with you guys. So I am going to chop at about where the best leaf probably is. Probably about there. I don't think that these bottom leaves are going to do so well in terms of rerooting, but I do feel like the top of the plant has a little bit better of a chance. So essentially, because it is so dehydrated like this, I am going to be trying to get it as much humidity as possible. I am also going to be chopping off these long tendrils because I don't feel like they're needed anymore. I could always try to root those tendrils considering it has a lot of aerial roots and see if maybe I can get something out of just a stick. I'm going to be using coco husk because again, these leaves look very dehydrated, and I am going to try to let it dry out just ever so slightly to give it a better chance at surviving. But I do feel like there are some leaves on here that have a very high chance of being rerooted. So you really have to get it at a certain point where you think that, okay, yes, I can save this plant. So that is pretty much what I'm going to be doing with this guy. I will show you guys some updates in later videos, see how this guy is doing, and cross our fingers that it's going to be okay. The same thing or similar thing is going to be going on with my Hoya caudata. My Hoya caudata I feel like is definitely rotting just because I felt as though it was drying out a lot whenever it was in my grow tent. So I began doing a thing where I would water without even really checking to see if the soil was dry, and that is a big no-no. A big no-no. Just don't do that. Definitely always check on your plants. Caudatas are pretty thin to begin with, but this is like a very abnormal thin leaf. Like I shouldn't be able to do that really. And at the bottom here also you can see it just doesn't look so good. I like to first wait until the entire plant dries out. So with this, I do feel like we're dealing with root rot despite not having any yellow leaves, despite not having any mushiness going on. I still feel like there is 100% something wrong with the roots on this. So we are going to check them out together. You can tell that there is some real mushiness going on with regular houseplant root rot, but with Hoyas, their root rot looks different because their root rot can also just look like very thin roots, very stringy roots. It doesn't have to be black for it to be rotting. So as you guys can see, this is what the root ball looks like. It's extremely stringy and just this doesn't look like a healthy root system. I can't exactly tell you whether or not it's rot or just like desiccated roots that eventually led to it being rotted, but I can tell you that these are extremely unhealthy roots. They're so fragile, they're so thin, they don't look like they would be really picking anything up in terms of nutrients, in terms of anything really. It's not a super healthy root ball. But we are going to be putting this in pon, and I am going to be putting some Fizzin in said pon. If there is some rot going on, we do want a little bit of fungicide in there to make sure that our plant is going to do well, but we don't want enough fungicide to where the fungicide will actually end up harming our plant more than helping it. So I like to personally dilute it. The bottle I think says 1 tablespoon to a gallon. I use a 500 milliliter squeezy bottle. The 500 milliliter actually stops right here, but I fill it all the way, and I use about 1 milliliter. So it's diluted about half, I think. So that is usually what I do, and this stuff has been soaked. So I've got it in the pond right now, and I'm just going to give it another quick little water with the Fizzin. The Fizzin can also help with algae that might occur in the pond, but right now we are using it more so for its fungicide abilities. And we're going to just cross our fingers now and hope that it can reroot and regenerate itself in the pond without having to have really disturbed the roots too much and just totally chopped it off. I really loved how mature and just large that this caudata was, so I really was not wanting to chop it up the same way that I chopped up my fitchii. So hopefully this works out well. I am also going to be putting this in a higher humidity area and potentially misting with Super Thrive. I don't personally love misting anymore just because I think misting can give us some effects that we're not intentionally looking for. It could cause some bacterial issues and some like leaf spot stuff, so personally I just don't think that we should really do that. But when it comes to things like this, when I feel like it could possibly help this plant, that is when I would like using it. But never ever ever use real fertilizer. Never use like NPK fertilizer on plants that are declining like this, because that could just seriously shock, burn, or do more damage than you wanted. So yeah, I think that is actually all of the plants that I'm struggling with currently and all the plants that I wanted to troubleshoot with you guys. Hopefully I will be able to do an updated video in the future over all of these plants and we can see what happens. A lot of the time it just depends on the plant, it just depends on your environment. Sometimes what works for me might not work for you, but really it's just about experimentation, trying to help out your plants, changing the mediums, trying to add some fungicide, trying to do things that could help your plant, but again, too much treatment might be able to kill it. So just be wary and cautious when buying all of those crazy plant formula type things that will supposedly make your plant feel better. So yeah, I think that's actually going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and hit the like button down below, and if you like me or you like plant videos, go ahead and subscribe if you want to. But that's going to be it for today's video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye!